Welcome, everybody, to the Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework bi-weekly sync. My name is Hugo Bernier. I will be your host for today, and we have a packed agenda. We'll be talking about our latest updates on the SharePoint Framework, and we have some exciting updates today. We'll also have our community project updates. We have lots of projects, and we have lots of exciting news on that. Picture together, or picture time with Together mode. So get ready, get camera ready, and if you want to show that you're an awesome part of the awesome community, we'll take a picture. And then we have the best part of the day. We have 3 demos with Tobias Maestrini. Will expose centrally managed document templates across tenants with SPFx extensions. Martin Lingstuyl, how I moved from Windows to Docker or from Windows to Docker to DevDrive, SharePoint Framework development environment options and their pros and cons. Looking forward to that one because I was planning on doing exactly that. And then Adam and Arjun are going to talk about the CLI for Microsoft 365 advanced usage. That's part of their continued series. All right. So we have lots of resources available to you. We have some videos on YouTube. We have LinkedIn groups for discussions. We have tons of open source initiatives. We have tons of sample galleries. And you can get to all these resources by going to aka.ms/community/home. Of course, you can write down all the URLs that are here, but honestly, /community/home is the best way to get to there. We also have community calls. You're on one of these calls, but we have the Microsoft 365 Power Platform weekly call with Microsoft speakers. We have the Power Platform monthly call, which was just yesterday. We have the Office Add-in monthly call, and then we have the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community biweekly. And on the opposite week, we have the Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework biweekly call. You can get all the recurrent invites for these calls by going to aka.ms/community/calls. And all the agendas for the calls are published on social media. So just go join us on Meetup by going to aka.ms/community/meetup. And speaking of our next Microsoft 365 and Power Platform weekly call, on the 23rd of April, we'll have, again, the latest news from Microsoft Engineering. These calls are always from the Microsoft Engineering team or coming directly from the horse's mouth. We'll also have Together mode because we have to show how awesome we are as a community. And then we'll have 2 demos. Mark Windle will talk about storing your custom Teams app files in SharePoint Embedded. And Matt Ruma is going to talk about monitoring email support box with AI. And if you'd like to present on some of these calls, you can do that. If you've got something cool to show, you've got some great samples or anything like that, as long as it's not a sales pitch, you can join us by going to aka.ms/community/request/demo. And we'll find the best spot to fit you on one of the upcoming calls. Now, if you'd like to find out how to get started in contributing with the community, we have some resources available for you. David, do you want to talk about that?
I do, in fact, want to talk about that, Hugo. So I want to thank everyone for their patience. We are finally getting these locked back down. I had mentioned yesterday on the Power Platform call that we are looking at mid-May, getting that scheduled this week. So I promise you that will be scheduled by end of week. Definitely take a look for that. General first-time contributor and Power Platform sample contributor session. These are fantastic opportunities for you to learn how to contribute to the community via GitHub. They are safe space. We do not record them, but they are live. So we walk you through. It is hands-on. It is a fantastic way to collaborate with other members of the community. So keep an eye out. And we're setting up some office hours as well. Now, what we also want to do is once you do contribute, we want to recognize you for the amazing work that you're doing. And that is where our recognition program comes in. It showcases those contributions. We've got a plethora, because it means a lot to us, of all the contributions that you're making in the community of badges. So it's powered by Credly, which means it is official and accredited, and you can put it on your resume, your LinkedIn profile, Twitter, put it on the fridge, send it to mom and grandma. They love them, and they will be proud of you because we are proud of you and thankful. It is absolutely free, no cost, aka.ms/community/recognition, and we're looking for some more fun and thematic ways to kind of recognize the work that you're doing as we head into summer, some spring cleaning, stuff like that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Absolutely no cost. Get opted in, because I can talk. Recognition. Hugo, back to you in Toronto.
Speak good. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. And if you want the blueprint for your tattoo, we're happy to provide that as well.
Truth.
All right. Let's get started with updates on the SharePoint framework. And to talk about the SharePoint framework, who better to have but Vesa? Vesa?
Yippee-ki-yay. Quick update on SharePoint Framework 1.19 is in a developer preview status right now, or beta 0 status. We will actually roll out release candidate later today, which is really cool. This will be a relatively small release. Let's go to the following slide. No, actually before, on following slide, we're going to talk about the fact that we're growing, which is super cool. So again, why we have the slides in the deck? Well, it's there to show you the constant commitment of the customers and partners on building stuff within the SharePoint framework. And this is not going to go away. Right now, we're looking into having SPFx as the Copilot extensibility options and a lot of cool stuff and new portal stuff in the works as well. But let's go to the following slide. I was almost teasing up on this one already. So 1.19 is heading to release candidate today. And that does mean that it's a relatively small update. So Webpack 5 from a technology perspective, big thing. Unfortunately, I think the TypeScript 5 is not there, and I do understand that that might be frustrating. Still, the older React version, which is frustrating for some people as well. There's a deep dependency, unfortunately, with the out-of-the-box SharePoint framework, SharePoint Online experiences, and they're using still React 17. So we cannot update SPFx to 18 as the YOMA generator because it wouldn't work. And that's a bit of a frustrating thing. Now, the cool new thing there, just to call it out, Brand Central is heading to public or the targeted release usage pretty soon, starting next week, I guess, or something like that within upcoming weeks. And we're looking into having guidance and options for custom fonts. So that means that we'll release a guidance on what you can do within your custom web parts to adapt on the Partner Center Brand Center font settings. So we will have a custom font support for custom SPFx components as well. So that's something new on the 1.19 as we're heading to the GA with that one. But that's a quick update on SPFx side. Let's move into the project updates.
Wonderful. And I'm so excited to be able to use Comic Sans in all my web parts moving forward.
Precisely. That will be the default demo, right? So
absolutely.
Yuck.
Don't make Stefan happy.
Yeah,
all right. Let's talk about our open source projects. And so we have tons of open source initiatives. And to talk about the first one is Julie to talk about PMPJS client-side libraries.
So presenting in WebDings, we have version 4.0.0 scheduled to GA this month. We are, as I alluded to on the pre-call discussion, we are working diligently to try to get through this and get this out as soon as humanly possible. So keep your eye out. It should be coming in the next week. We're just finishing up tests and documentation things. So everything looks good. I've been testing it myself and things have been great. So keep an eye out. As I said last time, version 3 will be maintained for any bugs for the foreseeable future. That's about 6 months. We'll do the similar thing that we did with V2. So it's in support mode as soon as V4 comes out. And, keep an eye on LinkedIn because that is where we tend to post our updates for the most part. And that is all I have to say today.
Thank you, Julie. One of these days we'll have to explain why there's bunnies and horses and swords.
I was not in charge of that. It was not.
Right. It has evolved, I think. There you go. All right. Let's talk about the CLI for Microsoft 365. And to do so, we have Gary. Gary?
Thanks, Hugo. Yes, we have the new beta version of CLI for Microsoft 365. This is 7.7.0. We have 2 new commands for Entra. So if you're doing anything with privilege identity management, you've got the ability to list role assignments, but also activate a role assignment as well for a user or a group. We've also updated support for SharePoint Framework for the new beta version, so upgrading projects, checking your projects as well with the doctor command, that's all there. And we've also added a new command that allows you to add sync content types from a content type hub to a site. So if all that interests you, you can head along to npm and install the latest beta. Just use the @next tag, and you can also use a Docker container as well, so you don't have to install anything on your machine. Just run CLI in a container. Again, just use the next tag. We've got a few other updates as well across the CLI, so check out the release notes, aka.ms. CLI-M365/notes, and you'll get all of the details there. If you have questions about CLI, how to use it, what you can use it for, and talk to people who know, then best place is to join our Discord server as well. So if you on Discord and you're not a member, you can join the server by going to aka.ms/CLI-M365/Discord. Next slide, please.
Absolutely.
Okay, dev proxy. So we have a new minor release. So we have 0.16.2. We've added the ability to mock requests now, matching on the request body. So before it was all based on the URL matching, but now you can go a little bit deeper. And when you have requests going to the same URL but different bodies, now you can differentiate the two and send different responses. We have had an issue on Mac OS as well. This has been something that has changed at the OS level, and we've put a bug fix in there. So if you have had an issue with the latest version of Mac OS, then please upgrade to this version because it will most likely work now. Two big updates though, and we've heard quite a few instances of feedback where you've had difficulty installing dev proxy on your machines, and we had a few scripts to do that. We've made this super simple now. So if you're on Windows, you can go to Winget and you can install the package from the registry. And if you're on Mac OS, we've also published a homebrew now as well. So all of our updates, all our new releases will all go through Winget and homebrew. And our new release will be happening at the end of the month next week, which will be 17.0. Okay, back to you, Hugo.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gary. All right. Our next open source initiative is our reusable SPFx controls. We have web part controls and we have property controls, and they're respectively version 3.17 and 3.16. We have some new controls. For example, in the property controls, we have updated the site picker and disabled the property support, and we've updated the test selection fix for the code editor. On the React controls itself, we've got custom formatting and file handling for dynamic forms. We have custom filter for the people picker, as well as aligning rich text font styles with the out-of-the-box web part, because fonts tend to change, and we have various other fixes. You can go find all of this at the links below. And again, if you want to follow us, you can go to @Microsoft or M365 PNP Controls, where we provide all the latest updates. Now, we also have the SharePoint toolkit for VS Code. And is Adam in the room?
Yeah, I am. If you hear me, then I am here. Okay, so...
No, we can't hear you.
Okay, so stop, Hugo. This is yours then. Okay,
right.
So SharePoint Framework Toolkit is a VS Code extension that will boost your productivity in developing SPFx solutions. It has a ton of features, like 22 main features, but there are also some smaller ones that will boost and help you on each stage of your SharePoint Framework development. So from the very beginning to help you coding and managing solutions, and some advanced scenarios like setting up CI/CD pipeline for your solution. So be sure to give it a try. You basically, cards on the table, you don't even need any kind of starting point with SPFx. You just need to install this extension, and it will guide you through how to set up a dev tenant, what other dependencies you need, and it will install them for you. So it's an easy start. So be sure to give it a try if you're doing any kind of SPFx development. And currently we have a new pre-release with a small bug fix, which was found. The bug was found and fixed by Dan Toft. So thank you very much, you rock. And currently we are prepping for V4, so gathering some bigger features for the next major release. So if you have any ideas, what would you like to see in this extension, be sure to give us a try. And we refactor our repo to be contributors friendly. So if you are looking for some contributing and you want a very friendly repo that will help you also learn how to do VS Code extensions, then be sure to check out our repo. We have currently 12 opened issues that you can take on and learn with us, not only SPFx, but also VS Code extensions development. Okay, happy coding, everybody.
Thank you. I love how we work as a team. I go in and put bugs and other people fix bugs. So that's great teamwork. All right, let's talk about our PNP modern search. And we have Casper Larson to talk about this fancy
sure.
initiative. Go ahead.
We are in a stable state right now when we released 4.11 about a month ago, and it's been going well. In the meantime, we have additional search result sources, like you see on the screen here, that is actually provided by the next presenter in our sequence today. And if we have any Hungarian speakers on the call, and they would like to help us, please reach out, because we would like to provide a Hungarian language pack for PnP Modern Search. And my Hungarian is a bit rusty, so I could use a helping hand. So if there's anybody out there, please reach out. And back to you, Hugo.
Thank you. And now let's talk about the SPFx samples. We have a repository of SPFx web parts and extensions that you can use to learn how to get started with SharePoint Framework. We have, again, an update on the content query online by Nemortu, and Tobias Maestrini has updated the company template extension, and I believe that's what Tobias is going to be demoing today. So he's happy I processed the pull request in time. All right, and we also have some adaptive card extension repositories. We have no new samples, but we are looking forward for your samples. You can go to aka.ms/m365/samples, where you can see all the samples, and of course, we accept pull requests. Now, we're a little bit behind, but let's get together with our optional picture time. There you go. Bessus.
Teams is in here. There we go. Ooh, we are pixel perfect. This is really, really good. There's Tobias. Oh, except everybody else is pixel perfect except I am. I need to get a new camera, clearly. This is good. We still have few seats in the room. Let's wait for a while. There's Hugo on the almost second row. Yeah, this is good. Yeah, Charles is there on the front row. Yeah, there we go. Let's actually, a few more rows. Let's start the recording so we don't waste too much time in here. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Awesome to have you in a call. Let's grab AK Funimation out of that. So, excellent. Oh, there's a great front row seats as well. Excellent, brilliant. We got everybody on the call. We'll share this GIF animation in the social media of this. Really cool always. Thank you for joining.
All right, Vesa, if you're looking for a high resolution camera, I hear IMAX makes cool cameras.
Yeah, I only have the Prio 4K, so I guess we need to go to 8K. So, you know.
All right, so today we have 3 awesome demos. Tobias Maestrini is going to talk about exposing centrally managed document templates across tenants with an SPFx extension. And Tobias, if you are ready to share, please take over the screen.
I am. Just let me do a few clicks. There we go. Can you see my screen, everyone?
We can see your screen. Yep.
Yeah, fine. Great. So let's start. Thanks for having me here. Thank you, Hugo. Welcome, everyone. As I know that I'm used to talking a lot, I'm trying to get through my presentation as quick as possible. And my current SharePoint Framework extension is based on a real use case and inspired by many discussions with my customers. It's all about the management of document templates. And I know there are a couple of ways to handle document template management in a Microsoft Office context, but I'm not talking about template management in a Microsoft Office context or content processing in SharePoint Premium. Today, I'm talking about template management in a company context, all backed up by the common SharePoint online service. And let's discuss how to expose company templates within SharePoint Online. My name is Tobias. I'm a M365 consultant based out of Switzerland, and my main focus is on SharePoint Online, SharePoint provisioning, and the Power Platform. If you'd like to get in touch, you can reach me on LinkedIn or on X. Would be my very pleasure. So when working with my customers, I was often asked how to best organize company templates in SharePoint Online, and it was about the global management and use of templates. And indeed, there are a few options that come out of the box. I won't comment them in detail, but let me quickly bring up 3 pure out of the box options. First of all, create a new document library or select an existing one and make it read-only. users navigate to the library to look for one or more given templates and download or copy them to the desired location. Yeah, sure it works. But a second one would be integrate the given set of templates in the new menu in every document library. Yeah, so far I haven't figured out if I like this approach or not. But third approach is define an org assets library. And that's an interesting idea because org assets libraries are very useful in terms of management of templates that are handled or that are used outside of SharePoint Online. An org assets library integrates seamlessly into all of the Microsoft Office tools, and that's nice because the users can access their templates right from the app where they need the templates. But in a scenario where you want to use your document template catalog directly in any SharePoint document library, unfortunately, this approach doesn't work. And therefore, let me introduce another option, the company templates extension. And it renders a button in the command bar that calls up a modal dialog in which the user can browse through all the company templates. And the displayed templates come from a centrally managed document library that serves as a template store. Okay, demo time now. But before I dig into the demo, let me say a word about the used components. From the PnP reusable components, I've chosen the site picker, the list picker, and the tree view component, because these UI components offer ready-to-go drop-downs and hierarchical view controls, and they're excellent. I couldn't have implemented it any better than they did. And the Fluent UI provides the known awesome layout components, and the PnP.js library, which I used, powers the whole implementation of file handling, actions, and procedures within the extension. And that's it for the prerequisites. Definitely time for the demo now. To save some time, I've already set up a document library that serves as template store. There you can see it's quite a normal template document library. Sorry, within SharePoint, it's within a communication site that acts as a brand central, and it's built up on several folders, which contains all those templates that are used company-wide. So navigate to a document library of your choice and select the command action to open the company template browser. And if the SharePoint extension is deployed tenant-wide to the tenant app via the tenant app catalog, which is the case for this demo, the extension is really available in every document library within the whole SharePoint tenant. So navigate to a document library of your choice, doesn't matter what kind of site is behind, and select the command action to open the company template browser. The visibility of this command action depends on the permissions of the current user. It is only accessible when the user has permissions to add items to this given library. So click on it to open, and there we go. These are our company templates, which I showed you before. And these are organized in a clear and simple folder structure. Simply browse through all your company templates that you have access to, or that you have allowed access to, I mean, that you are allowed to see, because the view is always rendered in the user's context from a permissions point of view. Just a word about the content structure of the template store. As the company's template store can be any document library of your choice. You can set up any folder structure as it best fits your need. And yeah, that said, you're absolutely free how you organize it. So keep in mind that this is a SharePoint extension, and from a permissions point of view, the extension relies on the permissions that are set in your template store library, and therefore the objects that the user can browse through are all evaluated in the permissions context of the current user. So if you're a site admin, and only if, then you additionally can you have access to the admin settings. In bigger company, it's good practice that only SharePoint admins are site admins. And in this dedicated view, you can configure the settings for your company templates extension, which apply to the entire tenant. Here, you declare the site and the library where all templates are stored. You only have to point to that library, which I showed you at the beginning of my presentation, as well as the optional field that allows you to group your templates into categories of your choice. But this is not mandatory, so you can select this optionally. Be aware that only one dedicated library tenant-wide can act as a template store. This could be either an org assets library, which would be an interesting scenario because you would combine the features of the org assets library with the company templates extension, or a simple document library, as I mentioned before. When you save the settings, they are globally stored in a SharePoint tenant property, which I'm not going to save now to save some time. I'm going to click cancel and return to this main menu. Let's discuss the search and the filtering options. As an end user, if I may be looking for a manual, I have to choose manual from this filter category drop down, and see this all templates with manuals or with manual will show up or will be filtered out. Or let's assume we're looking. Yeah, let's select this one, these two, those tools. Or let's assume I'm looking for a calculation sheet for an ETL service calculation. It's not going to be a manual. So there we go. I'm going to select this one as well. And all those matching files are appearing on my screen. Of course, you could combine your filter and search terms. It's that easy as I showed before. So if you're good to go with your filtered selection and your search results, select the desired files as I did, and start the copy process by clicking on the Copy Templates button. As you can imagine, all the selected templates will be copied from the template store to your current destination, which means the folder within the current library where you actually are. So just to make sure I did not tell anything wrong, just refresh, shows up that these three guys came from this template store. And just one word on the copy process, in case you're about to copy a template whose name matches the name of another file that is already stored in this location. Don't worry, no files will be overwritten. Instead, an appropriate error message would show up. And yeah, that's so far for the demo. Let me show you now some parts how I implemented it. And the magic starts with the company templates component. It's a functional React component that takes the current context as a property and wraps all necessary components. And first of all, inside here, let's discuss the permission handling. As I told before, the visibility of the command button depends on a permission check. In case that the current user has permissions to add items to a document library, the button is rendered as visible. As you can see here, the user's list permissions are coming from the actual context of the user, and it is evaluated on this row here, and if the permissions match the permissions to add list items, the templates command would be rendered as visible. Admin settings are only available for site admin users, and there's also a check if a user is site admin, and this is implemented via a React state and the use effect hook, which is invoked at component load. Page handling there are two pages or page components or view components that contain the views with all the UI elements. The settings views, which I showed you before, which contains all the admin stuff. I mean, these drop downs to configure the template store, and the standard view, which renders all the company templates. To navigate from one view to another, I've implemented a simple page navigator, kind of a simple mini router, which is realized through a React hook. And with this, starting from any component or any view, you can pass a navigation request to any targeted view via the navigate to method of the use page navigator hook, and the targeted view then is displayed or rendered based on the router's property selected page, which you can see here. Now to something a bit more difficult or not that easy. It's a global stage management, which was implemented via React's context provider. And we needed a centralized state management to ensure that all components are accessing the shared state context information and act correctly, because multiple components, for example, the command bar component and the view components, need to have access to the same state, because when company templates have to be copied from the store to the current location, the user has made his or has set up his filters and has filtered out all the documents that have to be copied, and the command bar, for example, has to access all those filtered or all those selected documents and bring them from the template store to the current location. And these different components share data objects, and these state context objects will be mutated or accessed by different components. That's what I told you right now. And it's in the responsibility of this context provider, I mean, this is the templates management context provider, to ensure that the application state is always correct. And long story short, conclusion, centralizing state management, in this case, via React context provider, makes it much easier, almost, at least to me, to maintain the whole code base and state context mutations over different components, because you handle the app state in one central provider. And there's no need to propagate state information via component props in React. Now to something completely different. When copying files from one SharePoint location to another, I recommend always do it with PnP.js, but make sure you use PnP.js the right way. Make sure you initialize the source web with by using the absolute URL that indicates the target, the source, and not the relative URL. Otherwise, this leads to unexpected side effects, which took me a quite long time to figure out how this doesn't work properly. Thanks to Corey Road. I don't know if you're here, but thanks to you, you saved me nevertheless a lot of time. The extension settings, last but not least, are globally stored in a so-called SharePoint Online tenant properties. And the use of PnP.js makes these SharePoint tenant properties accessible in a read-only state to any SharePoint user that uses this templates extension. And just to make it clear, although only tenant admins have write access on tenant properties, the use of the PnP.js library can provide read-only access to the SharePoint tenant properties data in the context of any user, which brings me the ability to store document library settings centrally and globally in one tenant property. And how cool is that? With this, I'm going to conclude. Unfortunately, list view command sets are still not working in Microsoft Teams document libraries. This would be really great added value if this would work. And when it comes to file handling, always do it with PMP.js when you have to do it programmatically. But be careful when copying files from one location to another, just to avoid using side effects. And thanks to Dan, my partner in crime, for code reviews and any question that you will give, any answer that you give me on my questions. I really appreciate that. Yeah, okay, let's stop here. As I told you, I could talk the whole day long, but I say thank you again. And but now enough is enough. And with that, back to you, Hugo. Thanks.
Wonderful. Merci. All right, and let's move right along with Martin Lingstuyl to talk about how to move from Windows to Docker to DevDrive. Super excited about this.
Yes, hi. And good afternoon. Let me share my screen for a moment. Okay, so can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, we can. Go right ahead.
Okay, so let's start. So my name is Martin Lingstuyl. I'm a Microsoft MVP in the M365 development category, and I've been a Microsoft 365 architect with a company in the Netherlands called i4u. And I think we've been working with SharePoint Framework right from the very beginning, something like 7 years ago. So, and lately I was looking back at how, at all those years, and I found I had kind of drifted or used several ways to arrange my development environment. So I've apparently slowly drifted across several options of setting things up. And I think the only option I have not tried is using programming SPFx on a MacBook. So probably there's some people who may have an opinion on that, but you'll have to wait for another day. So the idea of this presentation is to demo a bit on the different ways to set things up and to see why we moved from initially just Windows across to Docker, across to the DevDrive, and see why we did that and some pros and cons. So I'd like to just dive into that. Let me start with the first option, of course, which is vanilla Windows. Now the main this is, of course, this is like the most simple way you can just start development SPFx. So just you just get the getting started guide out from the Microsoft documentation. You will start working, and this is what we did all the time. So this is just like working in a folder and just start run the Yeoman templater and create our web parts and so on and so on. And this is, of course, it's very simple. It's very basic. We can just run this, and the only thing we need is Node.js. We need our global dependencies and everything else. And this is very, very nice, of course. But so it's easy to start with, but there's also some challenges with doing things this way. So there's basically two things that we ran into while we were working this initially. And this is the first thing is that the Windows file system is notoriously slow when running npm install. So in the beginning, we used to have that we had to wait 15 minutes before we could start developing our SPFx solutions. So I've recently tried it again, and it seems to have gotten a lot faster also with the newer versions of of Node.js and npm. But still, it's still quite slow, and this is a well-known thing. And the second reason we started to look elsewhere is that there's not really a way to separate your projects from your host system. So everything you've installed on your host system can influence the way you program your SPFx project. So, for example, what we are often doing is that we'll have to build a project for a new customer, which is awesome. And we use, for example, SPFx 1.18, for example. And then on the same day, we'll have to move back and manage a project for another customer, which is running on SPFx 1.16 or something like that. And as you know, the different SharePoint Framework versions all are pinned to different Node.js versions and different npm versions. So this brings us with a very interesting challenge. How can we manage that on our device in a way that's really good? So how can we work with the different SharePoint Framework versions in a nice way? And the second reason why this is challenging is that, of course, well, we are not alone in working on these SPFx projects. So a lot of times I would be building SPFx projects and I would pass them along to my colleagues, and they would have to try to run those SPFx projects on their machine. And then we often ran into the situation where they had they also had Node.js installed, and still they had to, it took them a while to get this project running on their machine. And these are two very annoying things that you'll have to work with. So these two reasons were like the reasons why we looked further. So how can we find better ways to do this? And the first way we tried was to try Linux on Windows. So these days you can install Windows subsystem Linux, which is essentially just running Linux on your Windows machine. And this is awesome. This is really like a very good alternative to just running on your Windows C drive, for example, because Linux file operations are much faster than the Windows file operations are. So running npm install is really a much faster operation. So let me just show you. This is what we just did. I mean, we've got Linux running on my machine here, and I can just open a bash shell, and I can just start install my dependencies here and start running and see, well, what do I want to do? Well, let me try something else. So I can just run it here, and I can just start it up. And this is really a very fast way to work with SharePoint Framework. And the great thing is you can also interact with it through the Explorer, because WSL, Windows Subsystem Linux, is also visible from the Explorer. So you can just go and browse through your file structure, and you can see all your projects and work with them. So we really like this because it is, well, it's very fast, but still it's not really a good solution for one of the challenges we had run into, but because there's still not really a separation between your projects and your host system. I mean, the host system has just changed. It's now Linux instead of Windows, but you still have these global dependencies that may influence the work you're doing. And of course, another challenge may be that it will require some knowledge of Linux. And well, I'm not a person born with a Raspberry Pi in their hands. I'm not sure how many of you are, but still, it's a different way to work. You'll have to like Bash, for example. I personally like PowerShell more. But maybe you can run PowerShell core inside your WSL distribution. I don't know, but it's a thing. You need to dive into that and learn a bit of using Linux. So because of the first challenge, like the separation thing, we started to look further, and this was when we ran into Docker. So Docker is, of course, well, it's a well-known system these days. It's just a way to run a VM on your local machine, for example. And of course, you can run Docker containers everywhere you like. It's really a very good system. I mean, it's like you're running a Linux, very containerized Linux instance on your machine, and you can use this in combination with a fantastic implementation of VS Code called dev containers to work with SPFx. And this is really very powerful. I mean, this is like ultimate separation between what you're working with and your host system. I mean, you're creating a new host system every time you create a project, something like that. And of course, you also have fast file system operations also on Windows if you're using a Linux backend. So we really like this initially. I'll just show you how it's working with me. So what we did, I mean, you can do it in two ways. Let's start here. We ourselves would do is we really liked our code a bit more in one folder, you know, like that we had all our customers' code like side by side, like you could just browse through it using WSL. So what we would often do is just clone a template from our Azure DevOps, a basic like dev container template. We would clone it into a folder in WSL, just like this, and then we would open it in VS Code. And now, as you can see, I've got these basic dev container files that I can, like influence. Like this is the Docker file that this whole idea is based upon, and it will just install some basic things like gulp CLI, Yeoman, generator of SharePoint, etc., everything we would need. And if we can just run this and rebuild it and open it inside a container. So this is really powerful. We were doing this all day long. And I really liked it. So I've got one of these. I think I've got one of these here. Let me show it. Because I mean, the initial install process of Docker of a dev container is quite long because it will have to build the image. This is one of the things that I found very annoying about it. But as soon as you had it, it was very fast working. So we could just rebuild and reopen it inside a container and just work with it. So I really like this initially. We kind of worked a long time with it. And the great thing is, I mean, I can just, whenever I need this, my whole machine may have changed, but I can just rebuild the image and it will just work. And the same if I pass this over to my colleagues. If they've got Docker and dev containers installed, they can just open this, rebuild it, open it in container, and it will just work, more or less. Because I mean, the host system, that's the thing that you're passing along in the form of this Docker file and the dev container. This is just the definition of the system in which this SPFx solution is running. So we found this a very nice way of working, but there were some downsides, quite some actually. I personally disliked the extra added complexity. I mean, it can be challenging to set up a Docker file. It can be challenging to keep it up to date, certainly for people not really used to working with Linux, for example, people like me. So it's like difficult. It's more difficult also to onboard new colleagues who have no experience working with it. And also, what I found very annoying is that Docker will have a very significant memory footprint in your machine. And I never really figured out a good way of reducing that. So, it's just like Teams. If you're in a Teams call, it's like the system kind of explodes because it's using up a lot of memory. And the same with Docker, it will use a lot of memory. And the third thing is of course, the very slow start of the first time you're creating a project because the container has to be built or the image has to be built on your machine. So the separation between projects and your host system is really very powerful, and I think that's really useful in some scenarios. But it's also a challenge because it's so separated from your system that I mean you always also get these little annoyances, like for example, what if I want to download an image to my Docker container? So simple things like that. I mean, if you're working on Windows, you don't have to think about that, but when you're working with Docker, it suddenly becomes a challenging thing. Or for example, things like if you're running a Docker container, what it will do, it will bind the SPFx ports, 5432. It will bind those to the ports of your machine. So if you're now opening two solutions side by side, you can debug them at the same time. Things like that, it's there is added complexity, and this is there is a possibility that you wouldn't like it. The question is the added complexity worth what it gives you? Is the ultimate separation, like what I'm telling you here, is that really necessary? That's, I think, the big question why you would consider using it or not. So in the end, for us, it turned out that the challenges weren't really worth the benefits weren't really worth the challenges. So we thought, I mean, let's look further, and that was actually the time when the Windows DevDrive was introduced. And Windows DevDrive is actually just a virtual hard disk that you can create on your machine. And it's using a different file system, and it's got some optimizations. And we tried it out, and it was actually super fast, much faster than the default Windows, than working on default Windows. And this is very, very powerful, very fast. I really like this. I mean, we are using NVM, the Node Version Manager, to get at least some separation between projects. And I mean, you'll need to switch node versions as still if you're moving back to different projects, or you'll need to check out if you're passing along the project to a colleague. So you'll have to know, or they'll have to know, and they'll have to install the right versions of their global dependency still. This is a thing that we'll still have to do, but it's much faster, and it's just Windows. It's also I think that's really positive. I mean, I can just work with PowerShell. I can just do all the things like I'm used to doing them, and it just works. So as long as you're just as long as your as NVM is working for you, this is really a very powerful thing to use. So the challenge is, I think, I mean, there's no real separation still. I mean, NVM is very powerful, but it also comes with a couple of challenges or a couple of things. For example, if you switch your node version, it will also switch all the globally installed dependencies with it. So for me, that is annoying, because it may be that I need to switch back to another node version, and I'm forgetting that I had a different version, for example, of the CLI for Microsoft 365 installed there. You know, it kind of can get confusing. So you have to. There are ways to get around that, but it's something to keep in mind. So what's the conclusion? Well, I think there is no really a right choice in this. The right choice depends, I think, on your organization and how you are working together. So do you regularly work on the same project with colleagues maybe? How many colleagues do you have? How structured is the way you want to work together? Maybe are you maintaining older projects? That's all, of course, that's a thing to keep in mind. If you're often switching between projects, it would be nice to have some separation in place. But if you're going the direction of dev containers or Docker, the big question would be: is there someone in your company that's knowledgeable about these things, about using Linux, about using Docker, and maybe people that maintain those images for you? So these are the things you'll need to think about when choosing what's the best way for you. For us, it's DevDrive now, but I don't know. Maybe maybe something better will come along, and we'll switch over again. You never know. It's just we need to be sharp and keep looking at the possibilities, I think, and this is what we try to do: keep open to new possibilities. Okay, so that's it. I do have some resources here, so if you want to dive more into these subjects, do give them a try. And thank you for your attention. Back to you, Hugo.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I was taking notes. All right, let's. We're a little bit behind, but that's okay because all the demos are awesome. We have Adam and Arjun who are going to talk about the CLI for Microsoft 365.
So I will be talking about CLI for Microsoft 365, and this is our last out of 5 demo series, where we presented everything and just a glance about CLI. So if you are interested in something particular, which we will be presenting today, or we presented previously, you can check the recordings from the previous Viva calls. Please do reach me out directly, and we will do a deep dive demo only about that. And today we will be presenting you some advanced usage of CLI. So basically some unique features that prove that CLI can be used anywhere and boost a lot of your features. So let's start. And before we start, hi everybody, my name is Adam. I'm a standard dev, I'm MVP and so on and so forth. Yeah, I'm a maintainer of a couple of PnP products maybe you use and love, and please do reach me out directly, don't hesitate, don't be shy. And today with me, I have an awesome co-presenter, Arjun. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, I'm Arjun Menon. I am a Microsoft MVP in M365 development. I'm also a co-maintainer for CLI for Microsoft 365. I'm also a member of PnP. Back to you, Adam.
Okay, let's start. So CLI can be used in GitHub workflows almost natively. That's at least how we say it. Why? Because it can be not only used on like a custom script, like a step, but we expose GitHub actions that make this actually super, super simple. So as you can see on the slide, I'm presenting you the YAML GitHub workflow, and it has our CLI custom-made GitHub actions that we currently expose, logging, running any kind of script, and deploying it up. So it's really standard scenarios one may have for a CI/CD pipeline, right? And as you can see, it makes it super easy to just use them without actually knowing how CLI works underneath. So you type the name of the GitHub action and pass the parameters that are required to run this action, and off you go. And we have, of course, the docs that will guide you through this process, but basically this is not the only support and not the only DevOps environment we support, give any kind of support in CLI for Microsoft 365. So we also have a command that will allow you to generate a scaffold, a basic CI/CD pipeline or workflow, if you want to say in GitHub reality, that will deploy your app. And this is the SPFx project GitHub workflow add command. The project indicates that this command needs to be run in the context of your SPFx solution. So in the same catalog where your SPFx web part extension, whatever, basically your solution is stored. And it will generate this kind of YAM file directly in your project. So you don't even understand what YAM is and how it works, but let's go over it. It's quite a simple language. So you put the name. There's like a prep step that will check out your project from the repo. It has like all the npm install and the bundle of your project to have a package, and then it uses those CLI for Microsoft 365 GitHub actions to deploy, to log in first, because the pipeline is outside of your Microsoft 365 tenant, so it needs to first to log into your tenant and then deploy your app. And as you can see, it scaffolds you with secret placeholders. I will show them in a bit in further demos, but it's like a best approach not to have those values directly in your YAM because it's part of your Git, and everyone, if it's an open source, could see your secret or whatever because it's part of your code. It's better to have them aside as a secret in your repo and then use a placeholder for it. And there's then the deploy action that will deploy your package to your specified app catalog. And this command has a couple of options, like the manually trigger option that will modify the YAM that will allow you to then in GitHub UI manually trigger the flow whenever you want. Yeah? So basically, this is really awesome because you don't need even like some knowledge about how YAM works and how is this language written, because CLI can generate simple scenarios, how to have a CI/CD deploy workflow for you. Yeah, so really awesome. Another option we have is a login that you can log in also as a user, not only as an app. This is a simpler approach, but please be aware that it has some restrictions. For example, it will not work with an account that has MFA turned on. So basically, it's a kind of login method you can use for your dev and testing kind of things, but not for production for sure, okay? And then we have additional options that will allow you to specify a site collection or site level app catalog. And then you need to scope it to the site collection level and pass the URL of the app catalog you want to deploy your app to. Okay, really awesome. And here I am in my VS Code. I already scaffold my, using the CLI command, I already scaffold my YAM flow. And we only generated the YAM file. We don't integrate with GitHub. So then you need to commit it and push it to your repo. And after you will push it to GitHub, GitHub will automatically find it in the actions and will pick it up and start running. The first run usually will fail, yes, because usually we won't have those secrets ready up front. So you need to add the app ID, the certificate, and so on and so forth, so the YAM workflow will know how to log into your tenant. And okay, you might ask, okay, but if I'm using the application authentication, yeah, then I need to go to Entra, create my app, and so on. Yeah, with CLI, we have a command for it, an Entra app add, and you only need to specify the name, the permission you need, the certificate you will be using for logging, and grant admin consent, and that's it. The command will return you everything you need to put those in those secrets. So really awesome. And then the flow just works, of course, and we have it in our tenant. Another the DevOps environment we support is Azure DevOps, and we have, of course, a similar command, projects Azure DevOps pipeline add, which will similarly, like the GitHub workflow add command, also generates a YAM flow, which is built in a way for Azure DevOps context. So it's really, really similar, but the YAM has some differences. And for example, we put at the very top, it's it's trimmed now the variables where we specify all the possible variables you can use and fill for this flow. But of course, it's not recommended to fill those values basically here. In the guidance that comes along together with this command, we describe how, and I will show you how to move those variables to a specific Azure DevOps library. So, okay, let's speed up. This command also supports you specifying the name, the branch name that will each time you push will trigger the flow, the login method, user application, the same, the scope, skip feature deployment, so making it a tenant wide. It doesn't have the manually trigger option. Why? Because Azure DevOps natively supports running any pipeline manually. Okay, and as you can see, we don't have any like GitHub actions here. Here we use a standard Azure DevOps script step that will install CLI and that has those commands inside the script parameter. So this is really awesome for a person that is also new to CLI, and you don't need to even understand those commands because this command will scaffold the flow and the script in this flow for you. Okay, cool. So after we create and deploy, similar like for the GitHub, we'll deploy it to Azure DevOps, our pipeline. We need to set it up manually, and I will present it how it can be done really quickly. So we go to the pipeline section in our Azure DevOps repo, in the same repo where we committed our YAML flow. We pick the source. So if it's stored on Azure DevOps, then we pick the Azure repositories, the branch where we have our pipeline. Then we create to create an existing Azure pipeline based on a YAML flow file we already have, and we select the branch and the location of the YAML flow. And then it's basically there. So you have a summary view that you can summarize your flow created, and after you click save, the flow is there, and you can run it either manually or it will be triggered every time you do a push on a specific branch you specified in the command. By default, it's its main branch. Okay. So what I said before, we expose in the scaffolded YAML flow the variable section, but it's not meant to be filled directly in the flow. Why? Because then, as you can see, we have the password, the secrets, all of the GUIDs. Basically, it's not the best approach. What you should do, and we covered it in the guidance because we don't integrate, the CLI doesn't integrate with Azure DevOps, at least yet, maybe in future. You should move it to a specific component in Azure DevOps, which is libraries, and there you can create a variable group and basically move those properties there. As you can see, those are secrets now, and for example, the certificate password is not visible. It provides you with you can, for example, leverage the Azure Key Vault, and it has additional securities that, for example, only a specific team in Azure DevOps is allowed to modify this variable group, and other teams may just use them as read-only properties. So really awesome. And then in your flow, you just need to switch one line. So remove all those lines and just say that, oh, okay, I will be using group, which is with this name, which has those properties. And that's all. You don't need to modify anything else in your YAML flow to make the latest and greatest move in your CI/CD pipeline. Okay, really cool. That's the way we should roll about it, and of course it deploys. Another awesome thing I would like to, an advanced feature of CLI, and a feature which is really unique, you might not expect from a CLI tool like this, is that you can use CLI for Microsoft 365 as an API or your single API in your Node.js app. Yeah, really awesome. So here I am in VS Code. This is a really simple Node.js app. You see it has only one file, console log, hello world, and I do this standard, since CLI is an npm package, I can do the npm install CLI, and I will install this package as a dependency of my Node.js project. And then later on, I can just import it and use it in code, a CLI tool, which is your single API in code. So as you can see, I'm running the status command to check if I'm logged in. If I'm not logged in, so I'm logged out, I will do the login method and again query the status and query all the sites. And then after I will execute it like standard Node and your file you want to run, you see that in the output I have the typical CLI login method, which is by default the device login. Then I need to log into my tenant once because it's then cached and you don't need to do it every time. And I see the output that it's coming from the CLI as my API in my Node.js app. So it's like, whoa, this is so cool, right? A single tool that does it all, yeah. And from my side, basically, that's all. And just wanted to add that without this feature, SPFx SharePoint Framework Toolkit would not have existed because this VS Code used this feature extensively as under the hood to give you awesome actions. Okay. And now I'll pass my voice to my co-presenter, Arjun.
Thank you, Adam. I hope my screen is visible. Can anyone acknowledge it?
Yes, I can acknowledge it.
Super, thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So what we saw when Adam showed is to have the CLI embedded in your API layer. Now, imagine if you want to port it to an Azure function, how much powerful it is going to be. So imagine you have a script which is you have already written in your CLI, and you want to port it to your Azure function so that any of your front-end facing applications, be it a tab, be it a bot, or any kind of applications could easily consume it. So why do you really need to port the CLI into an Azure function? Well, you can easily port your business logic to the existing scripts without reinventing the wheel. So if you have a script already written, you can easily port it as an API layer so that the front-end facing applications will be easily able to do that. Now, the second part, or one of the most important part for most of the API layer, is the authentication part. Now, imagine CLI supports almost all the authentication approaches, be it a certificate approach, be it a client secret approach, or the conventional waiver device code approach. But while in the API layer, you cannot really use a device code because it will have to be a daemon application. So with a certificate approach, you can easily get the certificate from your Key Vault, Azure Key Vault, and get the authentication in place without doing much of that. So that is the advantage which it brings into the people. And needless to say, you can build in your favorite language, be it the JavaScript, TypeScript, or even in PowerShell. Because Azure Function, you can have almost all the kind of languages, and you can define your scripts over there. Then, like I mentioned, if you have a already defined backend logic, you can easily port it to your Azure Function and deploy it in Azure Function so that any of your front-end facing application can easily consume it. All right. So what we'll do is that we will just quickly show a particular demo of that. So what we're going to show is that we have a Teams bot as a front-end facing application. And when I give a site URL to that Teams bot, what that bot will do is that it will consume the Azure function, and within the Azure function, it is using the CLI, and it will give back the name of the site. Super complicated, isn't it? The name of the site, super complicated. That's what we're going to do there. All right. Let me quickly shift the screen. And first, let me show you the demo, and then quickly I'll show you how it has been done over here. All right. So again, what you can see here is a bot which is running here. Simple bot, nothing crazy. What I'm going to do is that I'm just going to go paste the URL of my the site where I need to get the name is, and let's hope it works. Well, we get the information at least. Anyway, again, what I have built is that this is a bot which I've built using the Teams toolkit. Pretty straightforward bot. Only thing which I have done is that I'm consuming an Azure function behind the bot, within the bot, so that you'll be able to get the information. And all the meat of the sandwich is going to lie in the Azure function, all the auth part, how are you getting the information and everything. Now you got the response from the Azure function that, okay, the name of the site is SPFx team site. Super, isn't it? Now let me quickly jump into the code part. Now what you see here is a super simple Azure function here. What we are going to do here is that we're going to define what is the Key Vault URL and what is the name of the certificate, what is the tenant ID, client ID, everything would be configured in your app settings. That's the only thing which you do that. Then when you come down here, what you're doing here is that you are going to authenticate against your tenant using the certificate, which is already available in the Key Vault. So you don't need to keep the client secret in your app settings. You don't need to keep anything else. So what we are doing is that we are using the certificate to authenticate against your tenant. Again, what you're seeing in this particular code, there is a great blog which is written by Ilio Strife. He has written the step-by-step process, and you can just literally follow that, and we'll be able to make this up and running. So Adam will be pasting the URL of that particular blog. You'll be able to follow that. So what I've done is that all I did is a minor tweaking in that code so that we'll be able to get the site URL as a parameter and get the details. Now, what you're doing here is that here is what we are executing the command for the CLI. So what we are doing is the moment we execute this command and we pass the parameter in this one. So what we're doing is that we are passing the parameter as the site URL, and how much ever parameter you have for any of this command, all these could be passed as a body, and you'll be able to get the response here. So all we did is that we included something. Oh, sorry. We included this execute command as a package on top, so that the moment you have this one and you invoke any command which is there in the CLI, be it in the login, be it in the status, or be it to do any kind of complicated operations. So this is the code, super simple code. I wish to go through the code in details, but I do not have much time of that. You can go through this code. You can refer to the repository, which is already available. I have the code already available here. You can go through that, and if you have any kind of doubt, just do let me know. Now that concludes our 5-week series, or rather 5 series CLI introduction, which was there. If you guys have not attended any of these previous sessions, please do go to the recordings, where we'll cover most of the amazing features around, which includes right from the introduction up until the advanced usage. So please do watch out if you have not seen that. Again, we are available in the Discord. Please do join us the Discord server if you have got some kind of doubts or questions or anything under the sun. We'll be more than happy to answer that. Along with that, we also meet every last Monday on a Discord as a casual meet, which is a totally unrecorded one. If you have got some kind of questions, feel free to ask. All right, that concludes, and these are the links which you can refer to, and you'll be able to do that. Over to you, guys, Hugo.
Well, thank you. We had 3 amazing demos today: Tobias, Martin, and Adam and Arjun. Thank you, everyone. You can give us feedback about the calls. You can rate the calls, content, and provide us input. You can go to aka.ms/community/calls/feedback. And then, speaking of our Discord channel, you can join our official Discord server, where you can get together and chat with the community team members. We look forward to seeing you there. You can go to aka.ms/community/discord. And we're short of 2,000 members, so please join us. We want to make it to at least 2,000. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. The recording will be available in 24 hours on the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Community YouTube channel. You can follow us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev and at M365PMB. Our next Viva Connections and SPFx call is going to be on May 2nd at 7 a.m. Pacific time. Our next M365 and Power Platform call is going to be April 25th at 7 a.m. Pacific time. You can get all the calls by going to aka.ms/community/calls. And with that, thank you, everyone.